welcome back to my channel. You know, I have said many times that's why I named this channel Mimi's Big Bag, is because I like to upload just things that I find interesting to share. Well, I want to share with you today an experience that I have been involved in for the past week. Now, I've only been home a couple hours, and I thought it was important that I film this as soon as possible so that I wouldn't forget some things that I wanted to tell you. And just, you know, I'm still kind of in a decompressed mode. It has been quite a unique experience. And that experience was being on a sequestered jury trial. Now, I'm not going to get into specifics of what exact trial I was on. I will tell you that it was serious enough that first-degree murder and attempted first-degree murder were the charges. I know jury duty always has a lot of negative connotation, like people just roll their eyes when the word jury duty is mentioned. And so for the purpose of this video, I just wanted to share with you my experience in case you ever got sequestered. Now, I know that every city and county are different. Taxpayers, resources, money, all that play a part in how they do things. I live in the biggest city in West Tennessee. Evidently, sequestered trials are pretty common here. I decided to just put some notes down and just share with you some of the highlights that I experienced and just kind of let you know what the process was. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me below. I probably won't get specific in my trial, but some general questions regarding jury duty if I know them. So on April Fool's Day, I had to report to the jury commission downtown. We all knew in the room of about 500 that there was a big jury trial being picked that day. I think most people knew that I was the third group called. Out of 50, I was probably about number 25, something like that. And they took us to the courtroom, set us down, all 50 of us, and they called 20 people up front in the beginning of the courtroom. And they pretty much told us that this was going to be a sequestered trial. This was going to be a trial, have lots of news media and news coverage, and it would be sequestered. And so lots of moans and groans and eye rolling. Well, there were 20 people already called up to the jury area, and the other 30 of us were back in the gallery in the audience. The judge asked every juror, would you have a problem staying until Saturday? Most people said no. There was a few people that had some situations, like one lady was doing her doctorate dissertation, you know, had other hardships and things like that, babysitter, money, whatever. He was really nice, and I think he dismissed a few of those right off the bat. We went through a process, and this was one of the first things I learned, was called a challenge process. I didn't know how they picked the jurors, really. I've seen it on TV, and the attorneys ask questions. Well, they did. Each attorney got up there and asked questions like, has anyone been the victim of a violent crime? Does anyone have any family members that have been incarcerated, and blah, blah, blah. Well, some people would speak up, and just so you know, I did share that someone in my immediate family was incarcerated. And for whatever reasons these people had, oh, and one of the other questions was, do you know anyone in the Attorney General's office? You know, the state was doing the prosecuting. Well, a few people raised their hands and named off who they knew. And just like me, for whatever reason you were honest about, they asked you, you know, does your relationship with that person impede your ability to serve justice? All but one gentleman just insisted that what happened to his uncle, he could not get past. And so they asked him 2 or 3 questions about, you know, the seriousness of it. They didn't get super personal, but finally the judge did dismiss him. And he did dismiss the lady that had the dissertation due in just a few days. And even with my personal experience with someone being incarcerated locally, did not faze the situation, which, you know, regardless, I would have upheld the law regardless of what my situation was. You know, I've shared before, my husband is a police officer. It was clearly on my paperwork. I could have been married to the chief of police, and that wouldn't have affected my ability to uphold the law. So that was the purpose of that challenge. Now, on Tuesday morning, we were told to report to the courtroom with our suitcases. And we came early enough to where we didn't see in the public. We went in employee entrances, and we were led to what's called the juror room. That is a room that's off the back side of the courtroom where the public cannot see us. The jury room was set up with coffee pot and soft drinks and a kind of a small little office fridge, lots of magazines, and a few little board games and puzzles and things like that. Just about everybody brought a book or knitting or something like that. Tuesday was the first day of the trial. There was lots of waiting time. You know, we were in that room from 8:30 in the morning till about 6 at night, off and on all day. Now they would bring us in, swear us in, then go back to the room. We would sit for an hour or so, go in the court, we would be called to the courtroom, listen to some opening statements, you know, maybe 35, maybe an hour. There was lots of back and forth, courtroom to the jury room. And that went on for 4 solid days. A lot of times they explained to us that the judge and the attorneys needed to have legal discussions because it was real important of what was presented to us and how they presented it and things that we were to take into consideration, things like that. Now I'll tell you a few little facts about my trial. There were 21 witnesses, and I would say over half of the witnesses were with law enforcement, officers on the scenes, crime scene investigators, medical examiners, and I would say 5 or 6 of the witnesses were friends of the victim. Another thing I learned was that all the proof of this conviction fell on the prosecuting side. And we had 104 exhibits. And exhibits are tangible things that related to the case. It could be Facebook photos, pictures of the crime scene, the weapons, the bullets, I mean, just all kinds of things. That was all evidence of the case, but they called them exhibits. And each exhibit had to have a sticker and a number and a description on it. And that was a lot of time in the courtroom, was just documenting 104 things throughout the 4 days. Like one thing, they had 20 photocopies of the crime scene. Well, it took 45 minutes to get all those with proper identification. So it was a lot of downtime, even in the courtroom, but you still had to sit there facing forward and paying attention. Just about every day we winded up between 4:30 and 6, something like that. We started about 11 a.m., but we never started on time. We kind of got a running joke. The judge would say, we're going to start promptly at 10:30. Well, here come 12. The bailiff would come get us. So it was kind of an ongoing joke of who could guess, you know, the call time. And we just had the best time. We had a lot of fun where we could when we were in the jury room. And we would share jokes and tell funny stories and ask group questions. Like one of the questions I asked is, anyone ever met anybody famous? And we read a funny thing about your horoscope and the kind of cook you are. It was just, we tried to enjoy each other's company and make great conversation the whole 4 days. They did cater us in lunch every day. It was usually somewhere around a local restaurant. One day it was like fried chicken and green beans. It was just a nice little plate dinner. They served us every day around 12:30. Nothing super fancy, but it was always good and adequate, and we all enjoyed it. Usually around 6 o'clock, a big, like 20 passenger, I call it a church bus, cruiser van thing, picked us all up and take us to a nice restaurant. So you could tell when we got there, they were prepared for us. A little awkward when we'd go into restaurants because we would be coming out of this bus with officers in front of us, and so there's no telling what people thought was going on. So we had Italian a couple nights and a steak dinner one night. We had a per diem that we could spend, and if you did want an alcoholic beverage, it came out of your own pocket. And there's a few that chose to do that. As far as sleeping accommodations, we did stay just a few blocks from the courthouse. And it was a decent hotel, not 5-star by any means, but it was a decent, clean hotel. And we had to pick our roommate. And just so happened we were all even number. We started out with 8 women and 6 men, and we all just paired up with somebody. And I was writing my name on the list, and the lady said, "Do you have a roommate?" I said, "No." She said, do you want a room?" I said, "Sure." So we just all got to pick someone. Well, come to find out, we really had more in common than we didn't. We were both first grade teachers. She was still in the classroom, and she lived on the opposite side of town than I do. She had 2 kids. I really had a great roommate and enjoyed her company, and we were just really respectful of each other. So I was so afraid of that situation. It can get awkward if you're rooming with a stranger, but for us, we just kind of clicked, and it was all good. So I wrote down some negatives and positives about being a sequestered juror. The main one is just being away from your family. You know, they took our cell phones immediately when we got to the courtroom, and then we were sworn in. They didn't want any outside influence whatsoever, and I have to say, we felt very safe at all times. No one ever approached us. We did see a few news channels following us the first night or two, but you know, I don't know what they thought we would have said or talked to, but we did see them. You know, and that can be traumatic for some people, but we felt like that anybody that didn't want to be there had plenty of opportunity to speak up during that challenge process. So we felt real confident that everybody there kind of wanted to be there, or you know, made it happen, so to speak. So the next thing was there was lots of waiting. That's my second negative. But you know, I brought crochet and brought some magazines, and we just tried to make the best of it. But you know, there's going to be someone that it may have overwhelmed them by so much downtime. We really tried to make the best of it. Third thing I wrote, it can be really mentally and emotionally exhausting. I mean, we were so thankful that this trial was not a death sentence. He told us that from the very beginning. I think that could have highly charged our emotions if it had been. We were all very adamant about wanting to do the right thing. It was just kind of stressful. You know, it was just heavy on you. And that could just be traumatic for some people, you know, not realizing that it can be that way. But with those 3 negative things said, I have to say the positives totally outweighed the negatives. By the end of this experience, it just truly changed me in a good way. The first thing is just learning the system, learning the judicial system. I mean, you learn it as a child and through high school, and how the process works in a textbook. Unless you're in the legal field, you just don't really know how it all works. And being behind the scenes is even a greater unique experience. That was a real positive for a lot of us. We're back there. The next thing is just restored our faith. If you ever were a victim of a violent crime, you do have people that want to do the right thing. We really believe that the decision we made for this person was the right decision. Justice was served. Last but not least, I gained 13 amazing new friends. You know, the funny thing is after we got to know each other, every day we just kept getting closer and closer and just finding out more about each other. And we were from all walks of life. I would say 10 out of the 14 were probably college graduates, but you know, that didn't matter whatsoever. I mean, the other 4 that I'm just guessing didn't have a college degree were very insightful and just lovely people, just based on their profession. Did not require a college degree is where I got that from. We laughed so much and had such a good time. We had a pastor, we had a nurse, a couple teachers, a vice president of a big corporation, a utility worker, a retired truck driver, a technical writer. We were all kind of like 2 in their 20s. We had 2 in their 30s, 40s, several of us in our 50s. We had one 60-year-old and one 70-year-old. So we really had a cross mix of different types of people. By the end of the week, just like my roommate, we found more common than we found differences. I said this kind of reminds me of summer camp, where you know, it's just an unforgettable experience. You never forget the people you met. We all traded phone numbers and took a group photo. We really hope to get together in the next month or 2 and include our spouses or significant others, really keep our friendship connected. So I hope this video answered some of your questions regarding what it would be like to be on a sequestered jury. The positives definitely outweigh the negatives. I encourage any of you that are given the opportunity for this experience to please take it. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have. General questions about being a juror, I might can answer you. Just keep in mind that my county and your county might be different, but you might could do some comparison to see what they are. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.